party, the Democratic Party, actually leaning into a very strong narrative around the border. And it's, some people would think, oh, they would shy away from that given, the back and forth in the administration and the Biden administration. But you see this forward leaning into the narrative. I'd like to play for you the Harris border ad and get some thoughts from you on the other side. Let's take a watch.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Raquel, what are your thoughts there? I think it's kind of gutsy. I love the sort of open up the conversation on my terms. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this. I was at the rally last night, and the energy was incredible. What I did not see were signs that said mass deportations. And as you all remember, the RNC convention was carrying mass deportations. Vice President Kamala Harris was talking about comprehensive immigration reform in a border state where we know many families need the solution to come out of the shadows. Yes, she talked about addressing the border. She talked about coming after the bad actors. But she also talked about the fact that we need to have an earned pathway to citizenship. And that is what we have been talking about keeping families together, about bringing people together and finding solutions and executing on this once and for all. And Latinos in our state are looking for a candidate like Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Walz to make sure that we deliver on this issue instead of spreading hate and fear-mongering on this issue, because Republicans have made this issue such a wedge issue that you're right. People are trying to steam away from it, but I am glad that we are talking about this issue and talking about it in a way that is comprehensive.
Governor Whitman, Arizona is so interesting to me in part because it is demographically a microcosm of this country. You have a younger, diverse population pushing change in that state. You also have an aging white population in that state, some of which still leans more conservative. I want you to take a listen when we talk about trusted messengers to the mayor of Mesa, Arizona, a Republican himself, trying to deliver that message to those voters. Take a listen.
The Republican Party has been taken over by extremists that are committed to forcing people in the center of the political spectrum out of the party. So I have something to say to those of us who are in the political middle. You don't owe a damn thing to that political party.
Governor Whitman, I wonder if you think that message resonates with the audience it is intended for.
I do. And I think it resonates very much. There are so many Republicans who are disaffected. I mean, I'm one. I grew up in the Republican Party. I've been a Republican all my life. Now I'm a forwardist, as you heard in the introduction. I co-chair one of the co-founders of the Forward Party, and we're a third party because people deserve choices so we don't get into the kind of mess we've been in during this presidential debate, this campaign. I mean, now we're frankly in a much better spot than we were just a few weeks ago. But still, if you think about what we've been going through for the last 6 months leading up to President Biden stepping aside, we didn't have to be here. If the two parties had been more open, if they'd been more welcoming to people, if they hadn't become so extreme. But now we have a chance to, at least in this election cycle, to ensure that we save our democracy, which this is what this is really about. And there's so many Republicans that are just fed up with the hate, with the name calling. The Republican Party in which I grew up, and Michael, you know this as well as I do, we weren't misogynist, we weren't racist, we believed in the rule of law, we believed in the Constitution. We just aren't that party anymore.
We are not, by any stretch of the imagination, Governor. We are a long way from that space. And Jasmine, it sort of begs the question for me, how's the public and what you're finding through your reporting over at Notice and and covering this election, are these efforts by the Harris campaign, not just on immigration, but on other issues? And we can talk about, the war with Ukraine and the Middle East and other areas on foreign policy. So this combination of domestic and foreign policy is certainly at play. And it strikes me that Kamala Harris and her campaign are not afraid to lean into these areas which Democrats typically would tread a little bit lighter in the past because they didn't want the ugly narrative that Republicans would throw up. Today, they seem to be saying, bring it. If you're going to say it to my face, right? How is the public feeding off of this right now?
Well, I think that one thing that the Now Harris campaign was very aware of were Harris's limitations, were her liabilities on issues like immigration. She's not yet so tied to the negativity around Biden's economy, but they know that that's still a sore subject around the country. Higher prices is something that she's talked about. So I think that they really wanted to be out front on it, knowing that Republicans are going to hit her on immigration, knowing that Republicans are going to hit her on inflation, even though she wasn't the president at the time. Now, I think that what you're seeing people really resonate in these 15,000 person rallies, 12,000 person rallies, is the energy and the momentum that Harris replacing Biden on the ticket, him stepping down, has created. That optimism. Energy is one thing that I hear when I talk to voters. I was in Philadelphia this week. I was in Milwaukee last week. The first thing that comes out of people's mouths. So I think that that's what you're hearing. But they're hoping that her policy positions start to really color in people's minds when they talk to polls and they say, I don't really know how she would legislate on this one. I don't really know how she would enforce this policy as president. They're hoping that now these ads that are substance-based not only push against Republicans' efforts to quickly define her in this race, but also color people's minds in hoping that they learn more about the vice president. That's why when she's talking about immigration, she talks about her past as attorney general. She's not always talked about her past as attorney general when running for office, when she's talking about prosecuting transnational crimes. That's why you hear her leaning more into being a prosecutor for criminal justice. It's not something that she's always talked about in her previous races. So I think that they're both trying to confront narratives that Republicans want to put in place, but also give Americans another option to think about her and think about her the way that they want her to.
Raquel, I want you to pick up on that enthusiasm we heard about from Jasmine's reporting. Specifically, I want to look at this poll from Marquette. It's a national poll. It was taken before Tim Walz was named as Vice President Harris's pick as her running mate. Among likely voters, Harris leading Trump head-to-head, 53% to 47%. Back in May, among likely voters, that number 51 to 49. There is some belief that Harris at the top of the ticket has opened up the map for Democrats. What is it going to take for Democrats to count Arizona in their column?
We need to continue to do that work that we have been doing for years, engaging people at their doors, knocking on doors and ensuring that they know that we have the best agenda possible. But I'll tell you, I've been in the campaign trail over 500 days now since last year, and I could tell the difference at the doors when we were talking to voters and the excitement. It was not just voting against somebody, it was voting for somebody. It's voting for a vision. It's voting for an opportunity for their families. So that is a game changer. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be about engaging the voters, having the one-on-one conversation. And here in Arizona, something that we have done very well, even before we had MAGA, because y'all remember we had Sheriff Arpaio, we had Russell Pierce, who was the author of SB 1070, and we had defeated those bad actors through the years by engaging our communities. So we have been knocking on doors even before we had the excitement on the ticket. Now that we have motivation, you get to see more people engaging their neighbors. I mean, yesterday it was 115 degrees outside. It was a Friday afternoon, and the place was packed by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was wild. It was really like the Harris campaign really has to feel really great. And we in Arizona feel great about delivering Arizona one more time, because the excitement is at the end of the day a game changer. Remember, y'all, we won Arizona in 2020 when delivered for President Biden by 10,000 votes. So making sure every vote is counted, making sure that we have energy in the room will be something that will help us deliver 100%.
Raquel Terán, the former chair of the Arizona State Democratic Party, thank you so much for getting up early with us. Jasmine, Governor, you are sticking with us because up next, Donald Trump finally decided to leave his Mar-a-Lago hideaway and hold a rally. And later, House Assistant Minority Leader Joe Neguse on how the new-look Democratic ticket might impact down-ballot races. You are watching The Weekend.
Democracy is egalitarian, which means it's for everyone. But it also, I think, is a divinely inspired gift of our forefathers to show us that we can lead ourselves.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro. Connect with the provider today at ro.co/20.
I was so excited to buy my first home, but I needed a lot of work done on it. I went on to Angie. Jamie was the first person to call.
I explained to her some of the things I could do and showed her some pictures.
He's resurfaced my flooring. He's done plumbing work. He's refinished this beautiful table here.
We just had to sand it for a week.
Well, we didn't. He did.
With top-rated certified pros in over 500 categories, Angie can connect you with the right pro for any home project. Find top-rated certified pros in your area at Angie.com.
My melasma made me feel really ugly. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I just hated taking photos.
How am I ever going to get rid of it?
Stop suffering from melasma. More than 600,000 people have regained their confidence with Muesli's prescription treatments.
In the first 2 weeks, I was amazed.
I looked at myself in the mirror and I just thought, I'm back.
I've been telling everybody about it. It's been life-changing.
Find the real you again. Go to muesli.com/TV.
When the details take precedence, and each piece is crafted with intention, the rest falls perfectly into place. We strip away everything but the essential, finding sophistication in simplicity. And what we're left with are thoughtful bedrooms for modern living. Thuma.
My goal weight is feeling healthy.
Running a 5K.
Loving how I feel in my clothes. Hers can help you achieve your goals through a range of personalized weight loss treatments, including GLP-1 injections and support for nutrition, hydration, sleep, and movement. Go for your goals with Hers. GLP-1 injections starting at $199 per month. Get started today at forhers.com.
I think the issue that will determine who wins this election is the question of freedom. Freedom over your own body for women, freedom to read, freedom for parents of LGBTQ kids to parent them, whether you're talking about state races, local races, congressional races, or the race for president. The freedom question is actually the most important question on the ballot, really.